Welcome to another episode of the official Catchup, and today it's myself, Shaun, and I'm joined by Ben. How are you doing today?
Not bad, Shaun. How are you?
Good, good. Aye, I'm glad. It's been a while since I've took the lead on one of these things, but yeah, Chris is taking the day off, and Derek's having a wee bit of commuting trouble. I don't know.
Commuting trouble.
Yeah, he was out. Well, he was out. I believe a wee weekend away, so
Oh,
it
that's
just a
right.
bit worse for wear on his way back home.
Fair dues.
Who knows? So, we're going to fire through a few things. Have a look at the Lowland League in the west of Scotland, especially with the new Pyramid restart update coming out. Before we get on to that, though, we do have to mention the Soccer Shop Direct. They're obviously sponsors for the podcast. It started off quite quiet, but they seem to be going from strength to strength, picking up teams and lots of great stuff on their site. So, well worth having a look. Give them a follow on Twitter as well. It's at Soccer Shop D. Getting back to us and I suppose the Pyramid, then one of the biggest talking points to come out recently is the most recent restart update that came out on Thursday. Biggest talking points in there being the friendly starting on the 14th of September and potentially the competitive games beginning on the 10th of October. What's your thoughts on that? You're quite happy to hear it come out a bit more officially?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about it is that it actually seems like there's a plan. I know speaking to other clubs and stuff, there was a lot of kind of discussion about kind of not being told what was going to be happening and things like that. So you can't really plan ahead for a season as such if you don't really know anything. But they also came out with the government guidance and obviously what the SFA are saying that we can potentially have some games. I think it'll be interesting to see if the friendlies will be maybe behind closed doors, and then we'll be looking to get the fans back in for the actual season restart. I think that would be a sensible approach for any club to do. Whether that's just a case of having the friendlies and getting your guys match fit, or you kind of do the live streaming approach and maybe have fans paying some money into the game to watch the game on YouTube or wherever. So yeah, good to have a plan. Obviously, we're just going to wait to hear now from the separate leagues to see what they're saying in terms of the actual league restart. So we're hopeful that we'll get something underway very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the big talking points for the week ahead is going to be spectators. As far as I'm aware, all the teams have been asked to submit their plans on how they would accommodate spectators. And also, I think one of the big talking points at the moment, something that you would never think would be trivial to a game of football going ahead, though, is the changing rooms and how they're going to operate that. And I suppose that for speaking to a couple of guys over the last week, that's one of the big things, because not everybody in the Pyramid have the biggest budgets, and you're looking at people having to bring in, external changing rooms, which you haven't in the past, and that's going to be a cost to the clubs and what have you. So, yeah, that's one of the big talking points for the week ahead, and it'll be interesting to see that come to fruition, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a major thing in terms of the actual playing side of things. I think you look at some teams, certainly in the West, there's teams that have pretty much got a glorified cupboard as a changing room. It would never work for teams, so that's certainly going to be an important point. You can't have guys turning up in their kit to play and then kind of leaving again in the dirty kits and wet kits and stuff. That's just not achievable or doable at all. I think some clubs will be able to handle it more than others. I think you probably look at the teams who are playing in maybe like kind of council run facilities where there's maybe multiple changing rooms in the building, therefore they can maybe spread out a bit more. But there'll be teams out there that, yeah, for sure are going to struggle with the changing room aspects, the referees' changing rooms as well, all that kind of stuff that has to happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think the clubs still need a bit more guidance in that front, just to know kind of exactly what's expected. But hopefully we're kind of getting towards the end of kind of the troubles and get to playing football, certainly in the next at least couple of weeks. So hopefully, I think I said 14th September roughly for friendly. So it'd be nice to see some sort of game, whether that's with fans or without. I think the players will be keen to play. I've been speaking to a few players myself recently, and they're kind of saying the same, and really just keen to get back to playing. I think they got to start training contact again on the 24th, and that was just a big difference for them in terms of being able to prepare for a season, because I think trying to do the stuff non-contact in small groups and stuff like that really wasn't working for a lot of clubs, and I think they'll be quite happy now. They can get kind of almost full contact and working pretty much a squad size rather than having to separate off. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's still a lot more to be discussed, but hopefully we get a bit more clarity over the next couple of weeks and we can kick on from there and get the football back.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you roll back sort of 5 months ago, we all kind of thought it might be a bit of a quiet pre-season as far as signings went, especially with contracts all up in the air and how seasons were going to play out. But it's been a lot busier than I think anybody really expected. So a lot of these teams will be looking to start getting these new guys sort of fully implemented into the team and playing, each team's way. So it's going to be interesting to see that develop over the next wee while as well. One of the other big developments started to come from the pyramid was up in the Highland League.
Yep.
They've came out and they've said that they're going to go with a shorter season. They're going to play half of their fixtures. In essence, what do you sort of make of that?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it'll for them it'll be a question about kind of whether it's actually viable or not. Financially, they must have worked it out in terms of running the numbers and around kind of costs and things like that. I don't really know an awful lot about budget up in the north, in the Highland League, etc. So I'm not really sure how that will play out. But certainly, if you look to do that down here in the west or in the east, for example, then it would be maybe a bit more difficult because certainly in the west there's a heavy reliance on fans. I think most West teams would struggle to have only maybe 16 games. What would that be? Probably eight home games, roughly speaking. So maybe even 7. So you'd have to try and make double the money in a shorter space of time. So it would be pretty difficult, certainly in the West. So fair play to the Highland League. I think good on them for kind of coming out and making a decision and letting the teams prepare. I think they did the same as well. When it came to deciding the league, they were quick to make a decision and kind of give the teams that chance to kind of understand and what's going on and how it's going to play out. So good on them for coming out and deciding first and foremost. But yeah, I'm not too sure how it will work for them longer term.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they did really well with how they handled the season ending, and it worked out definitely in their favour in the end because it was a bit farcical when you looked elsewhere. Maybe not down at pyramid level, but as far as decision making going, it was a wee bit of a mess. And hopefully this one works for them.
Yeah,
you do look up to Highlands. It's not like lower down in Scotland we're blessed with tropical weather by any stretch, but they're definitely more open to the elements up there. And a lot of the teams up in the Highland League, I know they play in their own grounds, so they're no sharing. They've maybe not got the same floodlight restrictions and what have you that we've got down in the Lowland League. So it possibly is a decision that'll work well with them, and having a proper read into it as well. They're going to try doing the cup competitions a little bit differently with group stages and whatnot as well. So it sounds like they've left that open to change, I suppose, so they can play some more games if they've got time. Which, yeah, it's an interesting way for them to go about it. And I suppose we can't really talk about that announcement without touching on our very own Mozza, Derek's faux pas. The way he mentioned that in connection with the leagues down here, and it sort of set up with a Twitter meltdown for a second because it was left open to interpretation. What did you make it when you first seen it?
Yeah, I mean when he put it out in Twitter, I was kind of like, yeah, that's probably true. Like, I think that's possible. I think there certainly was discussions at one point that they'd be going down a similar kind of route with a kind of half season, but I see it quite quickly came out and get rebuffed by was it the East of Scotland League came out and quite quickly said right, that it wasn't true. So I mean, probably you find that maybe, I know Moz is like he's got connections like everyone else, so they maybe thought that Moz had some sort of inside track into what was going on, and the other clubs started to panic a little bit. So you can maybe say that Moz is some sort of Lowland League influencer or something, because he's got some sort of people listen to what he says. So I guess that's a good thing that people obviously thinking he's got. But it came out obviously not being the case, and I think I'm not really sure on the decision to go to a full season. Personally, I think you mentioned the weather earlier on there in the Highland League, but we certainly have our problems down here as well with the weather.
Yeah.
More so, I think, rain than anything else. I think maybe up in the Highlands, you may be looking at snow and cold weather, but I think if I look at our own club, the pitches was rained off, I think, about 6 or 7 times last season. It was like, that was in March and February and stuff like that. So if you're going to struggle to play games because of weather, then it's going to be a hard push to finish the actual season. Certainly, again, coming back to the West, there's not many teams have got floodlights as well. So trying to play that season midweek and such like it's going to be probably a wee bit difficult. I would have thought. Obviously, I think they've come out and said as well about the cup, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, what do you think yourself?
To be honest, I'm on the side. I'd like to see the full season played out. I'd quite like to see if we do need to lose games. Some of the cup competitions, they all have sort of varying levels of importance within the league, obviously, and some of them they're nice wee fillers, I suppose, for a few weekends. So there's a few of the cup games I wouldn't mind seeing pushed to a side for the season if we're not able to play the correct number of games out, I suppose. But that's only my personal opinion, and I'm sure it's something that they're going to discuss at length at these pyramid meetings that they've been holding. But I'm certainly hoping to see a full season, especially after we didn't get to see one last season. 100%.
Yeah, I think obviously that'll be critical though, regarding fans for most clubs, certainly from kind of lowland league down. I just don't see how it works without fans. So unless we get something kind of confirmed that we can have fans, I mean, if you look at attendances and stuff like that around the leagues, then it should be okay to have kind of 200, 300 people spread around the parks, outside and things like that, and spaced out appropriately. So hopefully we'll allow fans, but I guess it all depends on the government, really. That's not an SFA decision or anything like that, so it'll be up to the government whether or not we can have fans back. So I think there was a plan for a test event at rugby, Glasgow Warriors versus Edinburgh, I think it was at Murrayfield, which if you take Murrayfield's 67,000 capacity, it was something like, just over 1% of the crowd was actually going to be there.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably quite a wee bit away then for getting fans if we're talking a place the size of Murrayfield can only have potentially 1% at the moment, and see how that goes. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But we're hopeful, I think that's the main thing. There's a plan and we're hopeful that we can get the fans in.
Yeah, and I mean, it obviously boils down to even more than just spreading them around the pitch or the stadium. It's getting them in, through the turnstiles, doing that safely. There's things like using the toilets and that kind of thing. There's certainly a lot to be considered, but fingers crossed if people put their heads together, we can get a solution in place and we'll be able to watch some live football again. And you touched on it right at the beginning as well. This day and age, the possibilities of using social media and doing things electronically, streaming the games out is something I'm sure a lot of the teams and leagues are going to be looking at, and hopefully we can see something like that as well for the fans that either can't go along to the game or perhaps are a bit cautious still about going to these kind of events.
Yeah, I think, like, speaking from my own club's point of view, and I think we're definitely keen to run live streaming in some capacity. We're just trying to figure out really how that works in terms of finance, and I think we're quite fortunate that we have all the equipment there to record matches and to live stream sort of thing. So certainly other clubs around the leagues that have got good media teams that should be able to pick up some sort of stream, whether or not it's viable in terms of cost, or obviously connections are quite important. So I think it's a good chance for clubs to embrace kind of that type of thing and bring that into the club. I think I follow ice hockey in the UK, and live streams are pretty common within ice hockey. It doesn't really seem to affect the gate at all. There's a couple of clubs, my own club, for example, Glasgow, and Nottingham are owned by the same guy, and he basically doesn't have an interest in live stream because he does think it does affect the gate, but other clubs do it fine. So I think it'll depend how it'll work for the clubs. I think it's difficult to find maybe the right price point for streaming for own clubs. Look at the SPFL, they've been charging like 15 quid, 12 quid a stream. That's not going to work at our level, but so it'll depend on the clubs. But I think it's a good chance to see clubs embrace kind of new media and social media and all that kind of stuff, and maybe get some live streams for those, as you say, who maybe don't want to come because of social distancing or shielding or things like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm fully on board with it. I'm quite progressive in that kind of idea that let's do things new, try and change the way we do things. And certainly with the West teams coming across from junior football, I think into the pyramid, this is a good time to really adapt and embrace change, I think, as well. So hopefully there's more clubs will follow that kind of environment as well, and we'll hopefully be able to watch some games live at some point.
No, absolutely. And even just teams doing highlights and what have you, because there's been points where that's been a bit quiet within some teams, so hopefully it gives them a wee nudge to get that going.
Well, that's it. I think if you are a club in that position, you maybe don't know what to do. I mean, reach out to your local kind of schools and colleges and things like that, and see if they've got people who are interested in media, and bring them in. And if a wee guy in 6th year at high school is better than no one, or someone who doesn't know what he's doing, so reach out and maybe bring these guys into your club, and there'll be people out there who want to get involved in clubs. I've done it myself in the last kind of couple of years, and it's great fun. So I think if you are a club that's maybe struggling, if you are a club who is struggling to know what to do and you want help, then I'm quite happy to help you out and discuss things with you. I'm sure the rest of the guys in the podcast are the same. If you do have any sort of kind of reservations or interest and want to know more about kind of the technology and things like that, then hit us up, drop us a message, we'll be sure to help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wouldn't drop me a message. I had to get Derek to order my microphone because I'm pretty clueless when it comes to technology. But definitely the other three you guys are definitely quite technically savvy, I suppose.
Don't contact Shaun then. Sorted.
If you want to know how not to do something, drop me a message. And likewise, you said that put the message out if you need help. But likewise, if you're somebody who's interested, definitely this level, just drop a message to your club. You'll be surprised at how quickly they'll get back to you, because the clubs are always looking for help with all this kind of stuff.
Definitely.
And you were talking about teams being progressive. I suppose one of the most progressive teams that we've seen in the last couple of seasons being Darvel, and you were lucky enough to speak to their gaffer the other day. How did that go?
Yeah, I was chatting to Mick on Friday. I've followed Mick on Twitter for quite a bit, and he's an interesting character, shall we say, within our football. He gets, I think, a lot of hard time and a bit of bad press, but if you check out the interview, there's about half an hour's worth of discussion about Darvel and their money and how they can operate. He's very open, very honest about things, and that's what I like about him. I think, as I say, he does get a hard time, but you can tell he's just genuinely passionate about football and football at our level. He is a good guy, I think, and a lot of people have negative things to say about him, but I've had a lot of time for Mick. I've met him once before at a game, and very interesting chap, and as I say, just wants football to be the best it can be at our level. He makes no qualms about the money that Darvel are spending. That there's definitely a bit of money involved there, and they've got a plan there to try and get up through the leagues, and they're honest about that. So fair play to them. It's been done before in multiple different teams, certainly in the West. I don't know too much about the East, but through the years, there's different teams have done it and put money in and been successful. So it does work as a model, but I think he probably just rubs people up the wrong way a wee bit on social media and forums and such like. So it's worth a listen. It's a good chat. You can find out a bit more about Darvel, especially. I think for me, I did this because we talk about Darvel quite a bit on this podcast, but this podcast probably has more of I'd say probably at the moment an East and kind of Lowland League audience, so maybe people don't really know enough about Darvel, so it was a way to kind of give people a kind of insight into what's going on, and we'll hopefully have more of that kind of content soon to come in terms of the West, and so people can understand what's going on over in the West of Scotland.
Absolutely. I think, definitely the West of Scotland wasn't something that was on my radar too much, apart from when Auchinleck came over to play Kelty. They dropped on. But Darvel were a team that caught my eye a year or two ago when I saw the unveiling of their changing room, and I thought I was watching something from Manchester City.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they're an interesting team. And that podcast I had a listen to it when it came out, and I had another listen today. It was a really good interview. It was interesting to hear him talking about hearing the £10,000 signing fees that were getting talked about for these players that he hadn't heard about, and also, you know, he talks openly, like you say, about his investment in the club, that he's not funding massively, but he does pay towards a couple of things because he wants the club to do better. So, you know, he's definitely invested. But some of these wee stories I thought were really good.
I think the other thing about Mick was he was very honest and held his hands up about the whole training thing. I think he got a hard time on social media for the secret training session at Mar Hall, and the club obviously came out and said apologised and stuff, but I didn't really see much from Mick or the players. And he did say that they made a mistake and made some bad judgments at that point, and they're living for it in terms of being disciplined and things like that at the club level. So see, the guy gets a hard time, but he's very honest and very open about things, and it's better that than kind of being secretive in a bit of a closed book. And he certainly can chat as well, so it made for an interesting half hour.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can obviously find that same place you find our usual podcast if you haven't had to listen to it and you want to know a little bit more about the West or Darvel. Definitely worth a listen, even for the neutral. So I suppose just before we finish off, there's not been a huge amount of news outside the Pyramid restart, but when we look at the fixtures that will be hopefully getting announced shortly, we've seen South of Scotland saying they're ready to go. They're just waiting on everybody else and bringing them out collaboratively, I suppose. When you know you're West of Scotland, that's kind of your remit. What are some of the fixtures that you're going to look up for when that fixture list comes out? What games are you looking forward to?
I think from a league point of view, the Darvel versus Auchinleck game must be the absolute showpiece in terms of our West of Scotland first season. Darvel being the money team and Talbot being the successful team at our level and winning everything for the past few years. So that for me is the one to watch. And I think from a co-winning point of view, I think I'm really looking to play Never Meadow again. I think we're maybe going to play them in a couple of friendlies before the actual season starts. But I can't wait for a competitive match at Meadow Park, actually, because we went there at the beginning of the season. Last year, 1-2-1. It was a good day and good weather and stuff, but it's a good old fashioned ground. It's got the stand, it's got the close walls to the pitch as well, so it's quite an old fashioned ground, and I say it's a rivalry for us. So really keen to get one over on Meadow. It's always a game that you've got to win. We played them twice last season. We beat them both games, so hopefully we'll continue that. And I think if you look at it as well, for me, is the new teams that have come in. I think I'll say the new teams to us, certainly Bonton being one, Blantyre, Cumbernauld, these teams that you've not seen before at our league, and obviously Darvel being the third team that came up. But I don't want to make this a Darvel podcast again, so certainly, well, obviously that's an important one. But for me, it's the Evermeadow co-winning game is going to be exciting for sure. Get that rivalry back and get things going in the new league.
No, absolutely, and for myself, when I saw it at Lowland, I think a lot. I'm a Kelly Hearts fan, but even the neutrals are going to be looking forward to that Kelly East Kilbride game. Two teams, you know, Kelly already quite strong from the previous season, and East Kilbride have arguably had some of the best signings of the pre-season so far, certainly. So I think when those two teams come back together and they've managed to get the better of each other on several occasions over the last couple of seasons, so I think that's going to be a really interesting game. And then obviously with the season getting cut short last year, Bonnyrigg Kelty as well is going to be a game that's going to stand out. A few for myself as well. It's a neutral that I'm looking forward to. Cumbernauld were always an interesting side to watch. See, whenever they go up against any of the bigger teams, they're capable of pulling off an upset, and those are going to be some of the fixtures that I'll be looking out for. But the standout one, I think. I've been to each of the games just by chance in the past 2 seasons, but it's when Shire visit Ainsley Park to play Spartans. There's always fireworks in that game.
All right, okay.
There's always 4 or 5 goals, usually a red card or 2. That one's always, it's always an interesting game. So I'll be interested to see when that one's on, and I'll be getting along to that one, providing some of the other fixtures fall my way, I suppose.
I think as well for me, it'll be the cup games. So obviously with the West and the East coming in to play each other in cup competitions, it'll be exciting to get some kind of those older rivalries that we maybe had in the cup, and you only play these teams maybe once in a blue moon. So getting to play some of these teams again is going to be certainly something I'll be keen to happen at some point.
No, absolutely. And the Scottish Cup, hopefully we get a few teams going quite far in that, because that's always interesting. And there's always that, always looking at that gap. Last season it was between the Lowland League and SPFL Level 2 sort of.
Yeah.
But even this season there's going to be some teams that are kicking about in the West, I think, that are going to give the League 2 guys a run for their money. So yeah, those cup games, there's probably going to be some phenomenal games there for teams in the pyramid, 100%.
Very hopeful about getting football back, so we're hopefully getting towards that kind of time. I think from my own point of view, I've been back down at the club a few times in the last week or 2 doing some stuff, so it's getting back into that kind of normality of going to training and meeting up with the manager and the players and stuff like that, and doing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I feel like it's getting back. It's slowly but surely getting back to some sort of normality. So good.
That's fantastic, and I'm just thinking about the usual plugs, and we're probably just going to fire through the official catch-up one, but one that you gave us on the last pod was your own solo podcast that you've been doing, the fantasy football. How's that been going?
I mean, it's good. I think it started off really well and was getting it's getting quite a few number of listens, which is great. Fantasy football in Scotland, I found, is very, very hard. It's not the easiest of games. It's a lot of squad rotation, a lot of injuries and stuff like that that are causing it to be quite difficult games. So I'm enjoying it from that point of view. It's weird doing a podcast on your own as well. I mean, I just literally sit here and speak for kind of half an hour on my own and not talking to anyone. So it's kind of weird in that. But again, it's also quite good because you don't like time bound by anything. You can just do it whenever you're kind of bored, and as long as you get it out in kind of in good time. But yeah, certainly, if anyone does like fantasy football in Scotland, it's not FPL on Twitter, and you can listen to the podcast on all the good podcasting sites.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll probably need to go and have another listen myself, because I bet on Shankland a few times too many when he just didn't start, and I dropped him this week and brought Kabamba in, so that
nice. That's a good move.
That worked out all right for me, and I gave Tav the captaincy as well for my team with Eduardo being out. So a not bad week so far.
That's decent. Yeah. I haven't checked the scores yet, but it's certainly if you've done that, then you're certainly back being your captain, doing a bit of business for you there. So yeah, that's
absolutely. I'm sure he got a goal in, and he got me 40-50 points.
I've just checked the scores. It said 2-0 to Celtic, and I brought in Albion Ajeti as my second sub, my second transfer this week. So that's worked out well, because my other transfer was Kemar Roof, and he did bugger all on Saturday. So good to see Ajeti has got a goal, and I'm quite happy about that. But it's a hard game, definitely a hard game to play.
No, it is, and if like you say, if you're struggling at all, definitely go along, give your podcast a listen. I definitely should have before I played Shankland. I think
I'm in the top 4,000 in Scotland. There's only, I think, about 50,000 players, so it's not a bad start. Top 10% or something like that. So we'll take that. I'm definitely better at FPL in England. I mean, I've finished top 100k out of about 4 million once before, so definitely prefer my FPL. But it's good to have a wee bit of variety and play the Fantasy Football Scotland. The app's pretty decent as well. So it's just adapting. I think that the main thing for me is adapting to the different rules and stuff like that I'm still trying to get my head around. But we're getting there. We're making some transfers that have also worked today, so we're pretty happy.
And that the whole fantasy football for SPL, that's taken a massive jump in the last season, because it was pretty poor last season, to be honest, and it's taken a good jump. And if you keep making the same improvements that they've made there, it's going to be a pretty fun game to play for for years to come. Yeah, normally we'd fire through the plugs, but I suppose the biggie is official Catchup, and you can find all of our individual plugs on there as well. And we're also on Facebook. I think it's still the Lonely Catchup on there, and we're also on Instagram, but there's no many photos that you can take at the moment, so it's pretty quiet on there. We want to thank at Soccer Shop Direct again for their continued support, and you guys for listening. Thanks for listening.